Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah nabiyina Muhammad wa man ittaba al-huda. A brief overview as it relates to some books of fiqh. And fiqh is generally described as acts of worship, such as prayer, its conditions, its pillars, fasting the blessed month of Ramadan, its conditions, its pillars, its prerequisites, performing Hajj, pilgrimage, and the likes. There are a number of books of fiqh that we would like to mention and describe briefly for our brothers and sisters. From them, Umdat al-Talib by Imam Mansur al-Bahuti, rahimahullah ta'ala. And he died 1051 Hijri. So he died, let's say, roughly 300 and something, close to 400 years ago, rahimahullah ta'ala. Now this book is a book of fiqh. He speaks about salat, before that, purification, Hajj, Umrah, and the likes. And it's a Hanbali book of fiqh. But Imam al-Bahuti, rahimahullah ta'ala, authored this book for a layman. He authored this book for a layman. So he doesn't mention the proofs and the evidence. Not from the Quran, nor from the Sunnah. Purification, its conditions, its pre-requirements, salat, conditions, pillars, pre-requirements. But he does not mention the proof, neither from the Quran nor from the Sunnah. So this is for a layman just to understand acts of worship without the evidence and the details in that regard. 200, a bit more than 200 years after that, Sheikh Abdurrahman as-Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala, who died 376, so he's about 200 years, 225 years after Imam al-Bahuti, rahimahullah ta'ala, he authored a book called Minhaj al-Salikin, The Path of the Wayfarer. It's a similar book, but Imam Sheikh Abdurrahman as-Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned somewhat of the proofs and evidence. So you'll find that he mentions the conditions for purification, the conditions for prayer, the pillars, the sunnah parts of the prayer, but he'll mention some of the proof. He'll mention some of the proof. And this is an excellent book, likewise for a beginner. Likewise for a beginner. Both of these books. Umdat al-Talib without any proofs or evidence. And then 220 something years later, Sheikh Abdurrahman as-Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala, authored his book. You also have the book by Imam al-Shawkani, rahimahullah ta'ala. The book by Imam al-Shawkani, Ad-Darari al-Madiyya, whereas it's considered a comprehensive Islamic jurisprudence by Imam al-Shawkani, and it's a wonderful book. Imam al-Shawkani does the same thing about mentioning the pillars, the obligations, but he also mentions proof. He also mentions proof from the authentic sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and likewise, Imam al-Shawkani, rahimahullah ta'ala, he died 1250. So Imam al-Shawkani is about 100 years before Sheikh Abdurrahman as-Sa'di. He's about 100 years before Sheikh Abdurrahman as-Sa'di, and he was from Yemen. Imam al-Shawkani, rahimahullah ta'ala, does mention proof and evidence from the authentic hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he also mentions the statements of the Sahaba. So this is also a very, very good book on fiqh, which should be present in one's Islamic library. From the contemporary scholars, or the scholars that, for example, are still alive, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, hafidhullah ta'ala, in his al-Mulakhas al-Fiqhi. And Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan's book is similar to Imam al-Shawkani's book. His book is similar to Imam al-Shawkani's book. At times he mentions proofs and evidence, but he makes it brief. He makes it very, very brief. And this is a wonderful book on fiqh. As you can see, it has the chapters on the spine of the book, making it very convenient for the reader. So you know which volume you can find purification, prayer, zakat, fasting, marriage, divorce, and the like. So a very, very important book on fiqh, and should be present in everyone's Islamic library. Recently, an individual translated Al-Fiqh al-Muyassir, which is a 3-volume book on fiqh, and this was compiled by a group of scholars and researchers in Saudi Arabia, and it's very similar to Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan's book. Very similar to Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan's book. It mentions the proofs and the evidences from the Quran and from the Sunnah. It's a very, very comprehensive book, very good for the families to read, or an individual to read and study the different proofs and evidences from the Quran and from the Sunnah. It's a very, very good book. Some might say, is this a Hanbali book? Al-Mulakhas al-Fiqhi. Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafizahullah Ta'ala, does not, although his school of thought is Hanbali, but at times he opposes the school of thought. And the same with
Al-Fiqh al-Muyassir.
Although the general school of thought in Saudi Arabia is Hanbali, but they're not muta'assib, they don't blind follow. So if the proof is in opposition to the Hanbali school of thought, they will go with the proofs. They will go with the proofs. So in general, these are a wonderful set of books that we advise our brothers and sisters to read and to benefit from and to study and to have in their Islamic libraries as it relates to fiqh, as it relates to salat, as it relates to zakat, as it relates to hajj, umrah, and other acts of worship. Allah knows best. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira.